Hey, this is Mr. Bill. Today we're going to be replacing a sway bar on a 2004 Chevy Impala. Should be the same for 2000 to 2005. Okay, so when I was doing the lower control arm, which is the new part you can see there, this tie rod end the boot was gone, and there's just no way it's going to hold grease. It's actually still moves pretty tight, but anyhow, it's getting replaced. So that came off of here. I'm going to get an alignment done, so I wasn't too concerned about marking where the threads are. So next I'm going to take this back apart again, the link, and I've already broken those two bolts loose. They're 13 millimeter, and I was able to actually get this socket in there, and I used a piece of pipe on the end to break it loose, and then I switched to this swivel 13 ratchet. So I'm going to take this side off, go to the other side. Other people have mentioned, and I can see where that zip tie is. That's the new brake lines that I put on, and they're not exactly in the same place as they were, hence the zip tie, but they're most likely going to be in the way if I try to feed this sway bar towards me. So it's most likely going to go out the passenger side. So alright, first bolt's out, and this second bolt is about to come out. Okay, both bolts are out. They're the same size, so I'll clean these up before I put them back in. Taking off the sway bar link, I have a 16 millimeter on the top nut and a 14-inch ratcheting wrench on the bottom. This may vary depending on who made the link. Okay, so I'm using a pry bar to pry up the rubber bushing and the bracket. I did have to go and reconnect this and just put a little bit of pressure on it, and that kept this whole sway bar from jumping up and down as I was able to pry here. So I'll go ahead and get this off. I'm probably going to need 2 hands. Okay, old bracket and bushing out, obviously deformed and very crusty on the inside. Just all that water laying up in there. Also wanted to mention, I picked up these gloves at Aldi's. They're gardener gloves, and they're pretty awesome for working on cars. They're thin enough where you're able to be nimble with your fingers. So these worked out real well for me. Shout out to Aldi. Okay, passenger side, disconnected the steering tie rod end, 18 millimeter at the bottom, tapped it here with the hammer, broke it loose. Onto these brackets, this 13 millimeter ratchet. I just need a piece of pipe to break it, but then it's fairly free and easy to get out using the 13 millimeter ratcheting wrench. And then onto I'm going to leave this connected until I get these loose and get the bracket off. Okay, it's passenger side bushing and bracket out. And as you can see, this one is wore all the way through. Not good. So now I got this to disconnect, and then I'm going to try and snake this thing out of here. Okay, so I got the old links, the old tie rod end, the old brackets and bushings, and yeah, look at that, wore right through. Got the new parts next to it, new rubber bracket, link, tie rod ends. Okay, the sway bar is in, and it can be done without lowering the frame. Just a note that the new bolts that came with the Dorman were about 3/8 shorter than the OEM ones, so I just put those ones back in. You can see how they pass through that, and the subframe's actually notched out for it to go through, so they probably would have worked, but I got everything back together. I'm going to torque this down and put the sway bar links in. On the other side, I decided that I am going to replace the other side. It was the boot was still intact, but it was I took a look in there, it wasn't the best of shape. So overall went fairly well and didn't take nearly as long as I thought it would. The new bar is definitely heavier, and I'll put a link to the Dorman part number in the description. Thanks for watching. This video is on replacing the sway bar on a 2000 to 2005 Chevy Impala. Check the application on Dorman's website. This 927-100 came with the sway bar links, bushings, and brackets.